Should you move to Paraguay? Today we're going to talk about the professional side of things, private side of things, and if you stay until the end of the video, I'm going to share 2 residence programs with you. Let's get started talking about the professional scene in Paraguay. It's a very important question. You want to relocate to Paraguay and you're not sure what are the odds for you to find a highly paid job in Paraguay. You have to know that Paraguay is an emerging country and the median wages in Paraguay are actually very low. So if you come to Paraguay with the imagination that you will find Western salaries for, average jobs, then you're mistaken because those don't exist. I mean, average jobs exist, but you would have to rely on the local income, which is a fraction of what you see in North America, in the United States, in Canada, in Europe. So you would see a massive salary cut. I'm not saying you can't find a job in many sectors, you can, but you will be paid a fraction of what you're used to. So that's something to consider. High paying jobs do exist, they exist in banks, they exist in the industrial sectors, if there is demand, and there is demand for highly skilled individuals, managers, directors. So these jobs are certainly available. Even though there's not an abundance of them, these jobs do exist in Paraguay, just to make this clear. Another question we've been getting a lot is whether it makes sense to teach English in Paraguay. Now, I have to say that more and more Paraguayans speak English than 5 years ago. However, there is not a huge amount of demand for English teachers. I'm not going to say that there's no demand, because there certainly is, and there are more and more language schools as well. And that also means the demand for private tutors is going up. And you can imagine, there are more and more rich families in Paraguay, especially in Asunción. And a lot of them, they don't want to send their kids to a language school or potentially a university. So they'd much rather have a private tutor for their kids who can potentially go to their home and teach privately. And I think that's a way for you to do it. You can also go to a language school. You can request information there, see if there are any openings, see if they're hiring at the moment. There are not hundreds of English language schools in Asunción, but there are a few, so you could try that. You could also try Ciudad del Este, which is also a big area, and it's a very international place. It's very industrial. As more Paraguayans are looking to immigrate to North America, specifically the United States and Canada, there is more and more demand for English these days, and a lot of Paraguayans, they are actually learning English through watching Netflix, as much as they're doing it in developing countries in Asia. It's very much the same concept. You could also apply for a teaching position at an international school in Asunción. There are quite a few, so you could try your luck there, see if anyone bites, if any school is interested. So you have a couple ways to find English teaching jobs in Asunción. If you really want to come to Paraguay and you want to make sure that you have a position before you come, because you have no opportunities to earn a living on the internet, then I recommend you to get in touch with institutions, schools, companies before you come to Paraguay. Make sure you have at least a handful of appointments, because again, if you come here, there are costs involved, flight ticket, accommodation, and you want to make sure that you maximize your chances of securing a position in Asunción. And then when you are in Asunción and you had a couple of appointments and say everyone likes you, then you can cherry pick. But still, you want to have more appointments because you never know how big the line is. So please do that. These jobs certainly exist, but like I said, there's not an abundance of them yet. But you have options to earn a living offline in Asunción and also throughout Paraguay. Many of you are looking to incorporate a company in Paraguay to take advantage of Paraguay's low corporate tax rate. Whatever your ambitions in Paraguay are, maybe you want to open up a restaurant, maybe you want to open up a school, maybe you want to get into the industrial sector, maybe you want to open up a manufacturing plant. Whatever your ambitions are in Paraguay, you want to consider opening up an EAS company, which is one of the simplest companies to open in terms of structure. It is much easier than other companies because, again, this is the regular company. Okay, this is the company that many people open up. And with an EAS company, you can pay 10% corporate taxes in Paraguay, which is a very reasonable corporate tax rate, because if we compare this to other countries where the corporate tax rate is 21%, like it is in America, or for instance in the UK, in other countries it can even be as high as 25%. And so for an entrepreneur, Paraguay is actually a very interesting place because of the low corporate taxes. And many of our clients, they open up an EAS company. The EAS company is not opened in instantly. So you have to apply, you have to submit all your paperwork. So this is not anything like, going to America and opening up an LLC in America, like opening up a foreign LLC in America, which you can probably do in a day or two. But in Paraguay, it does take longer for a number of reasons. There's more bureaucracy, there are just more steps involved. However, in fewer than 5 business days, you can definitely have your company incorporated. When it comes to the business category, the sky is the limit. You have so much variety, and you can really choose what company you want to incorporate. So an EAS company in Paraguay is not just for the industrial sector, it is not just for the food sector, it is not just for education. Like, you can open up an EAS company for many categories, or most categories that you can think of. The 10% corporate tax rate in Paraguay may be reduced further by applying smart and legal tax deductions. So it's not unheard of that you can get the corporate tax rate down, say, to 7% or maybe even 5%. But 10% corporate taxes, that's on net profit. So after expenses, let's say you had 100,000 in volume and you had 50,000 in expenses, then you would have to pay the taxes on the 50,000 in profit, right? That would be the 10%, but there may be certain deductions that you can take to further reduce your tax liabilities for your corporation in Paraguay. Entrepreneurs should also consider the Maquila Law, which is also great because if you qualify and you have to apply for this, and there is a lengthy approval process before the Paraguayan government approves the Maquila application. But if you get approved for the Maquila application, then you may qualify for a 1% corporate tax rate. So this is almost as good as it gets, right? From 10% down to 1%. However, I need to add here, it really only makes sense if you have a company with tremendous volume, with lots of net profit. So if you have like a small business, I'm not saying small business, but small business and small money, then a Maquila company does just not make sense, because with Maquila, you have a lot of compliance, you have a lot of needs that need to be met for the company. It can only be in certain sectors. For instance, if you have a company that wants to trade with Brazil or Argentina, then you may qualify for the 1% Maquila Law. The Maquila Law is really only in place for Mercosur countries, so you want to be doing business with the neighboring countries of Paraguay to qualify for the 1% corporate tax rate. If you want to do business with, say, England, then this may not apply. Okay, you really have to do business with countries in the region, because this special tax regime is set up for companies that want to do business with countries in the region. So it needs to be regional. It cannot be, you doing business with China. It cannot be you doing business with America. It needs to be, say, Brazil, Argentina. And something you want to consider, let's say you want to start out and you have no idea how much taxes you will end up paying, and you have no idea how much profit you will end up generating for your newly incorporated Paraguay company. It really makes sense to go with the EAS company, because the barrier of entry is just placed a lot lower. With the 1% Maquila structure, you really need to meet a lot more requirements. There is compliance in case. There is also minimum volume requirements, and you have to deal with customs potentially. So there are a lot of things to consider before you should move ahead with Maquila. So the strategy that we recommend is for you to start out with a regular company where you pay 10% taxes and reduce your legal tax obligations as much as you can by utilizing smart tax deductions in Paraguay. And once your company is really profitable, and once you have a path to higher revenues, and you think that it makes sense to put in more work, because with Maquila you also have higher accounting costs, because there's more compliance, more transactions, there are more forms to be filed, and so there's just a lot more for you to do to take advantage of this special tax regime. But like I said, it does make sense once you have reached certain revenue in your business, and then you can really justify doing it. All right, let's talk about the personal side of things, which is something that most of you are interested in. Should you move to Paraguay for personal reasons? And there are a lot of personal reasons, like the tax situation. We have a lot of clients who move to Paraguay because they want to take advantage of the crypto taxes in Paraguay, which are currently 0%. So crypto is not taxed in Paraguay. Let's say you made a profit from trading cryptocurrencies in the previous year, financial year, you're not going to pay taxes on that profit if you are a legal tax resident of Paraguay. Likewise, let's say you made money from hodling, right? You had crypto for a year and you held it, and all of a sudden you sold it for a profit, then that profit is also not taxed in Paraguay. One thing to mention is you only really get this tax advantage if you are a tax resident of Paraguay. And if you have no other tax obligations, so if you have no other tax residences in other countries, I also must say that because oftentimes people think, hey, I can have multiple tax residences and get away with it, but that's not the case. So you really have to check with each country individually and make sure that you are not a tax resident of any other country. Next, from a lifestyle perspective, what are the expectations for Paraguay? I think it's important to realize that Paraguay is a very laid-back country. It is a very neutral country. Some people say it's a very boring country, but for many people, boring works. There's nothing wrong with living in a boring country if that's the kind of lifestyle that you want. Let me give you an example. Let's say you are a digital nomad, or you're an internet entrepreneur, or you're some kind of online professional, and you want to be in Paraguay because you want to reduce your distractions as much as possible. Because in Paraguay, there are no big nightclubs, there's no ocean, there's no like expensive entertainment where you can burn a lot of money. And that's good, because if you're building your business, right, if you're building your professional career, you want to minimize the distractions as much as possible so you can maximize your output. You can maximize the amount of time and energy that you spend on your business, on your career, on your job, whatever you're into. And later on, you can take that money where you paid little taxes on that money legally because you've been a tax resident of Paraguay, and then you can go, spend the money wherever you want to spend the money. And that's fantastic. And a lot of people take advantage of that. They want to be in an environment that is conducive to high output. They want to live in an environment that's conducive to productivity. And Paraguay is such a country because, like I said, there are very few distractions here. And which leads us actually to the next topic, love. Many people say that, in Paraguay, the biggest distraction is actually the dating scene because it's very attractive. They really like being with Paraguayan women, or they want to find a Paraguayan partner, a girlfriend, a wife, a husband, a boyfriend. And the people in Paraguay are very beautiful. They are very communal. They are very nice. They are very humble. They're actually really nice people to hang out with, and many people like that. So it's not just us Western men going to Paraguay to find love, it's also Western women going to Paraguay for love. And this is great. You have these options in Paraguay. And how you meet people is you go to, like, for instance, bars. You can go there. Some shopping malls have outdoor areas where you can sit. Let's say on a Friday night you can enjoy a great drink while enjoying the pleasant atmosphere. Mariscal Mall is one of those places where I personally hang out a lot, but there are also other malls like Shopping del Sol, which also has really good restaurants, cafes, and bars. Even a walk in the park is often a very good opportunity to meet new people, and especially if you have like a pet, if you have a dog and you walk your dog in the park, you'll be surprised by how many people you meet. And there are quite a few parks in Paraguay, or just walking your dog, throughout your neighborhood may lead to a new connection. People in Paraguay, they love dogs, they love animals, and oftentimes you will find people approach you, they want to pet your dog, and they start talking to you, and as soon as they hear your accent, they typically know that you're not Paraguayan, and because of that, it will be easy for you to get the conversation going. And this is why I recommend spending more time outside and spending less time on online dating apps, because when you're outside, you can tell who you're talking to, and it's just a much more effective way to meet people because it's also very social. You're going out there, plus you're practicing your Spanish, and you can really make things happen in a relatively short period of time if you're willing to, expose yourself to a little bit of discomfort, because going out there speaking a foreign language is usually never easy, and most of us, we need a long time to adjust, to become good at a foreign language. But you will really be happy once you've met people who like you and who you can practice your Spanish with, and you can teach them English. So it's a win-win situation for both of you. I have a friend who lives in France, and he comes to Paraguay a lot, and he spends a few weeks to a few months in Paraguay. He always tells me that if he were to live in Paraguay for the long term, he'd probably be married already, because there's so many beautiful women and there's so much opportunity also for business. He said, if I were not to book a return ticket, I'd probably stayed here already a long time ago. And he said he still needs to work in France and he can't live in Paraguay yet, but if he were to spend like a year in Paraguay, he has no doubt that he'd be married within that year. That's how confident he is in Paraguay's dating scene. And Paraguayan women, they're very traditional, they're very conservative, and they love being with a man who can take care of them, and they are very feminine, so they want to give you their best side as well. So I think this is a very optimal fit for both parties, because many men these days, they're looking for a conservative relationship, and we know that in the West that's often very hard to find because of modern values getting in the way of building, of forming a worthwhile relationship that leads to marriage, to children, and to a great community life. However, people say that this kind of relationship, the traditional monogamy relationship is much easier to come by in Paraguay than in many other countries. Another question is, should you learn the local languages? In fact, I've been asked by people whether they should learn Guarani, however it's pronounced, however you want to pronounce it. And this is a very big question because learning a new language is a lot of commitment. You know, it's years of commitment because it doesn't just take a month or 2 months, it takes years to master a new language. So here's my take on this. Paraguay and Bolivia are two countries where Guarani is spoken, Guarani is spoken, and because of that, you know, the language has usage in both countries. However, if you don't speak Spanish, I think it will be very hard for you to learn the local language, I mean Guarani in this case. And if you don't speak Spanish, I recommend you to start learning Spanish first. And once you feel comfortable, once you have accumulated a good vocabulary in Spanish, you can always go back to Guarani. But starting out with Guarani would be really challenging because it is so different from Spanish. Another thing you need to know is that Paraguayans, they actually mix the two languages, and that's why often people don't understand the Spanish that's spoken in Paraguay. And if you're out there on the streets of Asunción, you can very typically tell who is Paraguayan and who is not. Even people from Argentina can immediately tell, and for sure Paraguayans can tell because the accent is different, you know, the whole pronunciation is different. They are able to tell the difference between a person from Spain and a person from Paraguay. Another thing that also one of my friends told me, do not change your accent. Like, your accent, however you pronounce Spanish, is unique in Paraguay, and it actually gives you an edge because you sound different than local man. This is a hot tip. Now that we've made it to the end of the video, I want to tell you about two residency options to consider. The first residency option, which is the easiest one, is temporary residency, which does not require economic solvency. And Paraguay is one of the few countries in the entire world where you don't have to prove income, savings, net worth to get temporary residence. And Paraguay is a very generous country because they could ask you for proof of economic solvency, make your life 5 times as difficult. You have to get the documents, you have to get them authenticated, legalized, this and that. But Paraguay, at the time of shooting this video, Paraguay does not require economic solvency to get temporary residency. And after 2 years, you can convert to permanent residency. And if you want to become a citizen of Paraguay, then you can do that after having been on permanent residency for 3 years. So you're looking at a 5-year path to citizenship if that's what you're after. Option 2 would be to incorporate a company. It's residency by investment, which is a very popular option for entrepreneurs who want to get going right away. You know, they want to invest money, they want to put their money at risk, they want to start a business, and they don't want to wait 2 years before they get permanent residency. If you want to get permanent residency right away, go with the residency by investment option, which is also something that Nomad Elite helps with. We have clients from different countries who go for permanent residency and to have a shorter path to citizenship. And this is really important that you do that if you have a business that you want to start. The investment amount is $70,000. You don't have to invest the $70,000 right away. However, you can spread it out over a number of years. Let's say you want to put down 10 to 20% a year, then you can do that as well. And permanent residency is valid for 10 years. This is important too. I just talked to a client of mine and we were talking about this, how very few countries on the planet offer permanent residency for 10 years. In fact, many countries offer it for 2 years, for 3 years, for 5 years, but in Paraguay it is valid for 10 years. And best of all, guys, it is renewable. So once the 10 years are up, and let's say you don't want to become a citizen, many people want to become a citizen, other people not, because Paraguay, you know, with the whole dual citizenship, it's kind of difficult. Even though it's changing now, I've heard some positive stories out of Paraguay. They don't want to become a citizen and they just want to keep permanent residency. After the 10 years are up, you can renew your permanent residency card and it is valid for another 10 years. So this is fantastic news. Are you ready to immigrate to Paraguay? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. If you're ready to obtain residency in Paraguay and would like to work with Nomad Elite, then please feel free to contact us now. You should see our website link displayed right below the video. As always, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for watching Nomad Elite and we see you on the next video.